Hey, what's up, everybody? In our previous messages, we briefly discussed postmodernism, what postmodernism is, and I also gave a couple of principles in engaging postmodern culture. But now I want to take it to the scriptures, which is most important for us to understand what's going on here in Acts chapter 17. We're going to begin our reading at verse 16, but I want to give a little background information of what's going on in the preceding verses of this chapter. Paul and Silas had gone on to it says in verse 1, from Amphipolis and Apollonia, and came to Thessalonica. Well, it was Paul's custom, of course, to go to the Jews first and preach the gospel in the synagogue, and then to the Gentiles. So Paul spent 3 Sabbath days trying to convince and reasoning with the Jews in Thessalonica that Christ needed to be buried and raised on the third day. Now, some believed and some didn't, but some of those Thessalonican Jews became very jealous of what was going on there, and they actually sought to harm Paul, and they even went to the house of Jason, saying that Paul had come there, and they dragged Jason out and took him before the people, but whatever. But so Paul had left out of Thessalonica and gone into Berea. Now in Acts 17 verse 11, it tells us that the people in Berea were more noble than those in Thessalonica, because they studied the scriptures daily to make sure that what Paul and the apostles were telling them was the truth. And so, but while he was in Berea, those in Thessalonica came after him, and so Paul left to go to Athens, and Silas and Timothy remained in in Berea for a while. But as soon as they were able to come, they were to come see Paul in Athens. So what we see here now is we see Paul waiting for them in Athens, and so that's where we pick up with verse 16. And I'm going to be reading out of the New American Standard Version today. And it says, "Now while Paul was waiting for them at Athens, his spirit was being provoked within him as he was observing the city full of idols." Now, Athens was like one of the major cities in the Greek world, and it was known as kind of like an epicenter of Greek philosophy and pagan idolatry, basically. And Athens was named after its patron goddess Athena, who was known as the goddess of war and wisdom and skill and industry. And her companion was the goddess Nike, which was the goddess of victory. I know you've heard of Nike before. We have a very popular brand of athletic apparel, closely associated with victory here. And so what Paul saw in Athens was a city full of idolatry. Now in Athens, in every Greek city for that matter, there was something called the Acropolis. Now the Acropolis merely means high city. Acra means high, polis, city. So you have a high city, and these were elevated cities that basically could be seen from anywhere in the vicinity. And of course I have some pictures to show you, and you can see in some of these pictures, for instance this one, you can see where it's a massive area, and you can see down in the right hand corner at the entranceway, you see the temple for Nike. And as you go up, you'll go by many structures and things like that, and then you get almost to the very top on the right hand side, you'll see something that says Statue of Athena Promachos. That building is called the Parthenon, and in the Parthenon housed the statue of Athena, and it was a very massive building. In fact, I have there's a and here actually is a picture of what it looks like even today. Even today, it's such a really uh, great piece of architecture, and it's just like, man, it's just massive. It's really massive. And then in Nashville, they have their art museum down there is a recreation of the Parthenon, and it's a beautiful, beautiful building. And especially if you're dealing in the first century, this architecture was amazingly well put together. And then here we have a statue of Athena, and this is what they would say Athena looked like. Now, Athena was a daughter of Zeus, and I believe her mother name was Metis, and her uncle was Poseidon. And so actually they both kind of try to claim Athens, but eventually Athena was the one who was credited with the ownership of the city, and she named it after herself. Even here is another another current view of this Acropolis. Okay, so one more thing about the Parthenon that I was talking about before. The Parthenon was this great building that you see here on your picture in the ruins. The really big building that's still kind of intact. It was built and completed by, I think, 438 BC. It took 10 years to build this thing. 10 years. It's like 227 feet long, 101 feet wide, and 65 feet tall. So it's a massive, massive building. And for Paul's time, it was probably about 500 years after it was built. And I'm sure it was still a wonderfully put together building. Okay, so in our next video, we'll get into verse 18, and we'll see what Paul did after he saw the idols in the city. And so that's where we're going to leave this video right now, unfortunately, because YouTube has this 10-minute rule. So I'll have to cut it short now. But I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video, which hopefully will not take 2 or 3 weeks like it did for this last one to get out. Okay, till then, grace and peace.